Okay, so the lawyers backstage were already like discussing the legalese about what was just presented. I mean, basically, so Karen Dunn, Robbie Kaplan. Robbie Kaplan was with us 5 years ago in 2013, right after she argued U.S. versus Windsor in the Supreme Court, at which, you know, a part of DOMA was, the Defense of Marriage Act was struck down, legalizing gay marriage. Thank you, Robbie Kaplan. She's back with Karen Dunn, another rock star lawyer. And basically, Robbie and Karen, what you are doing now in the aftermath of the terrible tragedy in Charlottesville just over a year ago, explain to us what this case is and who you are representing and who you are suing.
Sure. So maybe I should talk a little bit how the whole thing began. So Charlottesville, as everyone knows, happened on August 11th and 12th, 2017. And when it happened, I had just opened my own law firm. It was like a month later. And we were all sitting around on like folding chairs and tables in the office and kind of watching what had happened, horrified like the rest of Americans. I kind of, my nickname or the phrase that they use about me in my new law firm is Robbie Acts. So don't say something to Robbie unless you're ready, because Robbie acts. In keeping with that motto, I decided that something needed to be done about it. So I called some people I knew, including, I'm sure you know her, Dahlia Lithwick, the wonderful reporter for Slate, who at the time was living in Charlottesville, and said, what do you think? I have this idea. Within 48 hours, we were on a plane to Charlottesville, meeting with a whole bunch of folks down there, several of whom are now our clients and plaintiffs in the case. And within a week, I think, or so after that, I placed a phone call to a person by the name of Karen Dunn, who we knew each other kind of from the same political circles, et cetera, Hillary Clinton campaign, et cetera. But I didn't know her well, but I'd kind of been a fangirl from afar. And I said, would you do this case with me? And so that was the beginning of the case. Sometimes we can really use the courts to do justice, hopefully more than happens today, but they still serve justice. The people we represent were a dozen people horribly injured by what happened. And most of them you've probably seen because they're very famous. One of them is the guy who was in the Pulitzer Prize winning photo of the kind of huge African-American guy kind of being hurled over the car. So his name is Marcus, and he's our client together with his now wife, Marissa, who at the time was his fiance, and whose life he saved by pushing her out of the way. You've probably seen pictures of the ministers bravely lining up kind of during the events on Saturday in Charlottesville. And one of them is a very handsome, tall guy with a beard. His name is Seth. We represent him. We represent UVA students who were there on Friday night, which in certain ways was the most terrifying part, who were encircled by alt-right white supremacists and neo-Nazis with torch-lit torches trying to throw them on them. So that's the deal. And 4 of our plaintiffs were hit by the car itself that James Field drove into the crowd.
So how many plaintiffs are there altogether?
We have a dozen, I believe.
Yeah. And who are you actually suing? The organizers, the white supremacist is that a fair way to describe them, the white supremacist organizers?
It is. One way in which this case is unique is it's the first, or at least the first famous criminal conspiracy, or here, civil conspiracy, that happened online. So these guys planned for weeks and really months in advance. Because of technology, I guess, can be both a blessing and a curse, as we all know. And one of the things it did is it allowed them to coordinate on a scale they never had before. So they used this gamer chat room, or former gamer chat room called Discord. And they set up private chat rooms for Charlottesville with different message groups like what weapons to bring, what shields to carry. They would talk about both how to do the violence and then like about really mundane things like how best to sew a swastika onto your shirt. I'm not kidding. And because after Charlottesville happened, a lot of those chats were released to the public, and we used those chats to kind of figure out who to sue and who were the leaders, including people who you know of like Richard Spencer who are kind of out there publicly.
So Karen, in terms of the legal case here, would that be a charge of conspiracy, or what are the actual charges here?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, Robbie and I are civil litigators. So we are bringing a civil case against 25 individuals and defendants who are responsible. And we really focused here on groups and individuals who had organizing responsibility and leadership responsibility for what happened in Charlottesville. And as Robbie said, the actions of what everybody saw play out in the media in Charlottesville, you would be shocked at how well that all matched up to what we see in the private chat rooms, where our defendants and others are coordinating what they're going to do on these 2 specific days. So this was premeditated, planned, thought out very clearly. So we have brought a primary claim of conspiracy, where we say, and we feel confident we will be able to prove, that the defendants worked together, they made an agreement to do violence in Charlottesville. And the primary response to this is that the defendants say they were acting in self-defense. So when they're talking about what weapons to bring and how to dress and what to eat for lunch when you're planning a big Nazi violent rally, that all was in self-defense because they knew that there would be people coming to this rally who disagreed with them. And then their second primary defense is that what they were doing is protected by the First Amendment. And so we actually had our first hearing with the judge in this case, who is a very respected judge in the Western District of Virginia. And I argued the First Amendment part, Robbie argued the conspiracy part. And with regard to the First Amendment, the judge says very clearly in his order, which we believe was a good initial victory for us, that violence is not protected by the First Amendment. So I doubt that this will stop the defendants from making this argument. That is, I agree, right? I mean, right? That should be kind of basic. They may still make that argument, but the fact that we have this early indicator from the judge that he's not going to accept that argument is very helpful. So those are pretty much the main claims and the main defenses that we can expect. Our trial is set for summer of next year, and so we're gearing up for that even now.
And this will be, is there a chance of settlement here?
No, so this case is going to trial. There is no settlement to be had. And can you imagine? What sort of settlement can you imagine would be had with the white supremacists who delivered such violence to the people in Charlottesville, including our plaintiffs, all of whom were injured by what happened here, some of them very, very grievously. So we don't plan to settle, we plan to go to trial.
And this will likely be in Charlottesville.
Yeah, so this is important. Our trial will physically be in Charlottesville, but the district is the Western District of Virginia. So that includes not just Charlottesville, where these events occurred, but a large area surrounding. So we'll get a jury pool from the large area surrounding, and so we'll have to figure out
which is pretty rural territory. I went to school at UVA. It's pretty rural territory.
Yep.
Does that raise the level of challenge for you?
You know, I'm not sure, actually, because I think we are going to be able to explain what happened here in a way that we hope all people of good faith, wherever they may live, is going to understand that what happened in Charlottesville last year is not a commonplace thing that happens every day, and was unusual in a way that our laws and frankly our sensibilities prohibit. And so that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the really amazing, kind of both ironic and interesting things about this case is in coming up with the best theory to use here, we had to go back to a statute that was passed, believe it or not, in 1871. The Ku Klux Klan Act, it's what it's called, of 1871, passed by the Reconstruction Congress in order to protect the newly freed slaves in the South. And frankly, to protect them from exactly what happened in 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia. I guess on one hand, that speaks to the strengths of our laws in this country and how they can be used for justice. On the other hand, the idea that we still have to use a law from the post-Civil War period to enforce the rights of Americans, in contemporary United States of America is a little frightening. So we think it's a very, very important case for our plaintiffs, and that's, I think, why Karen in part is saying that there's no settlement possible unless they're all going to admit that they did this and that was wrong, and they planned and engaged in racialized violence intending to hurt black people, Jewish people, gay people, women, and their supporters. There's no way to settle the case.
Why isn't the government taking this on?
Well, so there's news on that.
Yeah.
There's news on that score. So at 2 o'clock Eastern time, so I guess it's already happened or it's about to happen, there's a press conference for the U.S. attorney in that area who has announced indictments based on some of the guys we think who were involved in throwing. They had these tiki torches on Friday night, and one of the things they did is intentionally they threw the lit tiki torches on the protesters who were terrified, as you can imagine. So I think a couple of those guys have been indicted. James Fields, as you heard, was indicted. They have been doing stuff. Okay. It's not fair to say they haven't been doing anything, but they are not, so far, alleging the kind of broad-based conspiracy that Karen and I are pursuing in this case.
Who has a question or a comment? Up here, yes. Mic is right here.
Hi, Louise Pentland from PayPal. At company we stand for inclusion and against hate. I think one of the things when you take a stand, and I applaud you guys for leading this, is obviously the personal impact to you as individuals, and I'd be interested to hear what maybe the backlash has been on you both.
Yeah, so I'll speak a little bit about that. People may have noticed I'm wearing a Jewish star, which I started wearing. I've been Jewish my whole life. My son's name is Kaplan Levine, but I started wearing this when I went down to Charlottesville. And I have to say, of all the things that surprised me the most, there are a lot of things you can attack me on. I'm an open lesbian. I won this big gay rights case. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a woman. I'm a lawyer. You name them. The list goes on and on. But the number one thing that clearly focused the attention of these defendants and have been the focus of the attacks on me is anti-Semitism. I'm actually astounded by the degree to which anti-Semitism seems to be a motivating principle here. I think a lot of the defendants probably live in places where there are no Jews, I think. Certainly haven't had a lot of contact with Jews. They don't live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. But they're, starting from what they were saying, Jews will not replace us was the chant on Friday night. Blood and soil, which is the Nazi chant used in Nazi Germany. One of the victories we've had in the case, other than the motion that Karen talked about, is there was we're trying to get some of these messages that we don't already have from Discord. And one of the women who talked to them and kind of leading up to the event had the Discord handle, this is really charming, Kristallnacht. Exactly. For all of those you who don't know, that was the pogrom that happened in Nazi Germany in which thousands of Jews were killed. So it's astounding to me. I mean, I think they hate a lot of people, but I've been surprised by how focused anti-Semitism is.
I should also say we make it our practice to eat a babka at every...
It's true.
This is sort of true, to be honest.
You both have kids, though. Have you been worried about your safety?
Well, I will say, and since this is being streamed into the world, we obviously aren't going to talk too much about our security concerns because we feel confident that we are being watched fairly closely. But the security concerns are real. And we are going to do everything necessary to protect ourselves in this case. It is not easy to take on. I think we both had, I normally do trials for big tech companies, so I don't have these problems. But in this case, I had to, ask my husband, what do you think? Should I do it? And he said, you can't not do it. You can't not do it. And I agree with that, but first of all, I wish you all were our jury.
Right.
Because what the live stream people will never hear are your gasps and horror at things that Robbie and I think about and have almost become just routine as part of this case. So if any of you want to move to the Western District of Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great place to live.
Probably a good deal on land,
Yeah.
I guess.
And so I would say, Pattie's question is a good one, but we're on it. We're on it.
Yes, back here, right here, yes.
How do you think you're going to get a fair jury?
Well, so first of all, jurors are generally screened by the judge. So if there are people who come in with biases or evident biases, normally they will indicate that in some way, and they will be dismissed through the voir dire process at the beginning of the case. And our judge, I feel very confident, is going to be very concerned and very aware of the need to have an impartial jury. So that is what we're going to do. Some judges will allow the lawyers to question the potential jurors, so we may be able to do that, but there'll be a screening process.
Yeah. And maybe I'm an idealist. I'm not accused of that often, but there's a lot of horrible chatter about these issues in our country today. Obviously, it's the elephant in the room. But I believe that the issue of organizing and committing violence against people because they're black or Jewish or gay or Muslim or supporters of people who are any of those groups, I think the vast majority of Americans understand that that's fundamentally un-American, not to mention immoral, not to mention illegal.
Yeah.
So I'm still confident in the fundamental humanity of people, and I think that's what's going to happen with this jury.
I also think we've also brought a case that is very sizable in scope. So we're not talking about an individual defendant. We are talking about 25 defendants. We have also brought a case where the electronic evidence is extremely powerful, including with images and the most offensive, strong language that you can think of. So I think while nobody is assured of a victory in this case, particularly because no case like this has been brought previously, we have brought a case that we can situate with a jury as being very remarkable.
So Robbie and Karen have not done this before. This is an exclusive. This is a first. We are so honored to have you on our stage speaking about this. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. And we wish you well.